It was better to deal with this now. With a mere flick of the wrist, Naruto's tanto was out of Beast Boy's skull and wiped it clean. A few hand signs later, the ninja launched a fire jutsu at the corpse to burn it into nothingness. Soon after that, the entire area was consumed in a controlled fire that was contained in a fuinjutsu-based barrier, which would dissolve once the fire was snuffed out when the barrier's secondary ability to cut off oxygen in the enclosed space kicked in, and no traces of what was here except ashes remained. 20 years later, Uzumaki Compound, Tokyo, Japan. Naruto watched his children while they ran around, playing or sparring with one another. It was a wonderful sight to behold. After so many years of being alone, he had not only settled down but had formed a family once more, and was happy for it. 20 years since slowly gathering his little harem of women he had come to love and enjoy being around. 20 years of cleaning up the planet to make it better, truly livable, and a place where people didn't all have hateful negative emotions pulsing beneath the surface of their skins. Once the proper amount of energy ripped from Vandal Savage's body was given to them, Naruto saw his theory was correct about the aging process in their bodies, going into a form of space-time stasis, and thus becoming immortal in a sense.
This insect is known as a
and
common
since
hoverfly
it had been a good blissful
wasp.
existence for them. They grow stronger with each new day, said Pamela, while she walked up to her lover and husband, while encircling her arms around him, lovingly. That they do. Kushina takes after you in many aspects, remarked Naruto while seeing his daughter he had made with Pamela commanding the plants around her to do whatever she wanted. The red hair and beauty, perhaps, but her personality is all yours. She played a prank in school yesterday on a boy in her class. I had to sweet-talk the principal into letting her off with a warning, said Pamela with a small sigh. Yes, I heard about that. Though to be fair, the boy was being a dick to her in the past. He deserved to be wrapped in plants in such a humiliating manner that will make sure he will not do it ever again to her, said Naruto with Pamela nodding. And how is young Minato doing? He's surprisingly calm for having two very outspoken parents, said Pamela, since she was surprised about how the boy acted so calmly, yet was still strong when Naruto and Harley were his parents. Clearly, Minato inherited his grandfather's personality. Yes, Minato is very calm, very focused. He will do great things in the future, remarked Naruto, while he watched his son work on the balance beam, with his mother showing the boy how it was done alongside a girl with red hair. So will Karen from the looks of things. I still can't believe you got Barbara Gordon of all people into your harem despite the risk of doing it, said Pamela while she saw Karen was showing her skills were almost as good as Minato's own in terms of grace and flexibility. Considering Barbara Gordon is Batgirl, yeah, I did take a big risk. But as you well know, I have a powerful weakness for red-haired women with a spine, countered Naruto with a smirk and Pamela blushing, since she was in fact one such red-haired woman. Flatterer, whispered Pamela before she saw another one of Naruto's daughters. This one from Volcana herself, practicing her to use fire she inherited from her mother. Pamela couldn't believe Naruto had been able to seduce and bring Batgirl into the fold like he did with the rest of them. But Kara had surprisingly insisted on it since the two superheroines were dear friends and blonde-haired cousin of Superman couldn't stand the idea of outliving Barbara. So Naruto went to work on it. Ironically enough, he appeared before Barbara as himself, and charmed her with his natural wit humor. She laughed at his jokes, stories, and made a damn good first impression. So much that they exchanged numbers and went on a few dates in Gotham City at some of the more finer establishments. Naturally, Naruto had to meet her father, who was very protective of his little girl, thanks to what Itachi did at Police HQ, having a boyfriend, and gave the usual "if you hurt my daughter, I will hurt you" speech that normally sent weaker men running for the hills. Fortunately for Naruto, he was not most men, obviously, and thus didn't feat the elderly man but still respected him all the same. Given the fact Barbara was connected to Batman, even if the man was in semi-retirement at this point, Naruto didn't rush things like he usually did. So with that in mind, the ever-might primordial god used his natural charms to bring the secret superheroine into the fold of his harem. Naturally, she was shocked by this when it hit her full force, and had almost fled, if only to get away long to reach Batman to let him know about what Naruto had done. Only for Kara to stop her and hear Naruto out about himself along with everything else. After explaining everything, Barbara had to reluctantly admit Naruto's way of doing things was getting results since crime was down at an all-time low in Gotham City. At the time, Batman was barely ever seen, and Barbara herself had decided to go out on her own to another city, to do her own superhero solo act there like Nightwing had done once he had left the type. She didn't like the fact he had beat up all the police and threatened her father, but forgave him once Naruto told Barbara that the threat was empty, and he only did that to force Batman to stop pursuing him. Naruto had told her that he had made it completely clear to the Dark Knight that pursuing his existence was unwise, and to stop immediately. It wasn't his fault that Batman didn't listen and Naruto was forced to take more offensive measures to get the man to back off. Once things were cleared up, Naruto explained things further about himself and what he planned to do in helping humanity in his own way while keeping himself out of the actual spotlight. The Justice League would still function as it was intended to fight criminals, all the supervillains that popped up, and of course alien invasions. But Naruto would be a secret third faction that would ensure justice was done where justice was denied, and the world was a better place for it. In the end, Barbara joined his harem, and was soon given the immortal juice as Harley called it despite the fact the juice was not being juice at all. Naruto personally thought she was referring to his essence given the way the woman smiled, and Barbara's face was the same color as her hair. Harley teased Barbara for days on end about it. Good times. Oh, there is my little Spitfire. Just like her mother. Ready to take on the world and take no crap from anybody, remarked Naruto, while seeing his lovely daughter May being every bit the wild girl his wife Volcana was around people. And May even added her own little verbal quirk, just like Terumi May, where she would tell someone to shut, or I will burn you, with that same sweet smile on her face. For some odd reason, Naruto was quite proud of his daughter, and making many males she was around look at her in puzzlement over what they could have done to have her aim such a threat at them. Naruto also imagined Terumi Mai was also happy somewhere in the afterlife, knowing her way of threatening people, who she felt crossed her still lived on, through someone like his daughter. I hear the intergalactic fighting tournament is being held on the moon again this year. Do you think Kara will join and win again? Asked Pamela curiously. Maybe. Kara has gotten pretty good compared to when I first started training her how to fight properly. The poor woman still can't beat me in an all-out fight, but now there are only a very few handful who can beat her in a fight these days, commented Naruto while knowing Kara had come a long way from the teenage girl, who relied more on the overall power she possessed over skill to win a fight. Now, Kara was a well-balanced fighter who could go toe-to-toe with the likes of Donna Troy, Power Girl, Starfire, and even Galatea, in an all-out fight with the winner coming down to the right timing of each move. Will you join? Asked Pamela, knowing he participated only once when it was proposed roughly 15 years ago by Naruto's shadow clone Menma to various members of the Justice League. After what I did the last time I participated, not a chance. Everyone wanting to watch the tournament will instantly know the outcome, and those who want to fight will flee. It won't be much of a tournament if it's just me fighting a few desperate or stupid people thinking they can win, commented Naruto while his children he had with his 3 hot Kryptonian beauties and 1 Amazon princess currently sparring with each other. Tsunade, who was Power Girl's child, had just tried to smash Mikoto, who was Donna's child, into the ground with an axe kick, and missed with a massive crater forming as a result. Meanwhile, Killer Frost's child, his son, who Naruto named Haku after the ice user he met in Wave all those years ago, was sparring against his son Wildfire while Starfire looked at her son with pride from high in the sky. Galatea's daughter Samui was currently training with Kara's own son Kakashi, and the two of them were really showing their training had paid off. Naruto knew it wouldn't be too long before his offspring were ready for the outside world, and the galaxy should they wish to travel that far beyond the world. He honestly didn't mind what they did in life so long as it wasn't some horrible or evil thing that made them enemies of the universe. For example, say, committing mass genocide or enslaving a large chunk of the galaxy, one planet at a time, to form an empire bent on universal domination over all sentient life in all of existence. Tala's child is progressing nicely in the magical arts. You both must be very proud, said Pamela, while seeing Naruto's daughter Hinata using her magic to make water manifest itself and dance around her form. Of course she is progressing nicely. Hinata clearly has her mother's talent and my raw determination. The perfect combination needed to excel in her field. Though I will stress upon her not to rely solely on magic to fight, since there are still people in this world, and the galaxy with the ability to negate it. Relying entirely on one power is not a good or smart thing to do, replied Naruto, while seeing his daughter he made with Tala training, with her big brother Neji, who was another child he had with Tala. I don't envy the day they go out searching for their respective other half, commented Galatea after walking over to the two, and had a smirk on her face. Me either. My standards are impossibly high in terms of them finding a worthy person to be in a relationship, added Pamela while she saw Naruto nodding. I know, but they have to make their own choices when that happens. Of course, if you had listened to me from the start, we could have avoided this problem altogether, said Naruto with both women glaring at him. Excuse me. You wanted to put all our children in a single castle tower, surrounded by a large pool of molten lava, roughly 500 feet wide, and guarded by a small army of dragons bred to chase off any possible suitors. Not to mention you wanted to add an army of the undead in there somewhere, and other horrible things that would maim or butcher anyone not you or us, remarked Pamela with Naruto grinning at her. You have your high standards for their future spouses and protecting their virginity from being taken while I have mine. Besides, it's not wrong to protect your child from harm and ensure their future husbands or wives are worthy, said Naruto, while seeing Mercy approach with their sons, Hashirama and Tobirama on either side of her. You got that right. No hussy is going to be with my sons unless I give them the green light. And they better be strong women, too. None of those dainty women who are thin and need a butler for every single thing they don't want to do, remarked Mercy, knowing her sons were cute now. But when they reached full maturity, well, the army of women that would try to seduce them would be massive. They did take after their father in the looks department. I fear for poor Mio. She's going to grow up into a beautiful woman just like her mother, and we'll have an army of male suitors wishing to marry her, commented Pamela while she knew her second daughter was going to be a bombshell. Just like Kushina. Never. I will build my castle with an army of man-hating dragons. No one will touch my baby girls. Never, declared Naruto in a dramatic pose that made the women around him and some of the children seeing it sweat drop. Do you think we broke him somewhere along the way? Asked Volcana from where she was helping May in her training. Nah, he was already like that. I find it funny, commented Harley while she performed another major acrobatic leap on the balance beam. Mom, why is Dad acting like an idiot? Asked Haku while Killer Frost sighed. Ignore your father, my child. He took too many hits to the head over the years long before I met him. They are just catching up to his brain. No need to worry, answered Killer Frost while Haku nodded. Our father is an idiot, isn't he, brother? Remarked Hashirama while Tobirama nodded. Yes, brother. He is an idiot. And we are his progeny, answered Tobirama, while Naruto crouched on the ground and looked all depressed. My family is so mean. And also I can protect the innocence of my daughters and sons from unworthy men and women when they are old enough, mumbled Naruto to himself. Idiot, remarked both Hashirama and Tobirama at the same time. My two loving children aside, has anyone seen Barb? Asked Naruto, knowing it was his pet name for a former cheetah-looking woman so as not to confuse her with one Barbara Gordon. Right here with both Yugito and Matatabi, said Barbara Minerva, formerly known as Cheetah, though she was still, unofficially, Cheetah since Naruto had used his skills in Fuinjutsu to secretly give her the ability to transform back and forth between her forms whenever she wished. Excellent. I was thinking we could go into the city later and do some family fun stuff. What do you think? Offered Naruto with his wives, and the children around him nodding excitedly. All right. Karaoke, here we come, exclaimed Harley, and doing her own little dance on the balance beam and somehow not hurting herself. Only Harley could get excited about that in such a way, thought Naruto and Pamela with amusement, knowing that was one of the best things in Harley's mind when it came to fun in Japan. Naruto had relocated his entire family to Japan to give them all clean slates and have a nice peaceful life away from Metropolis, Gotham City, or any other city in the United States. It had happened roughly 10 years ago, with another 5 years to make everything go smoothly without the Justice League interfering, and another 5 years of enjoying the peaceful life Japan had to offer. During that time, much had happened in the world around him. For one, Knight and Raven got married, and were now proud parents to 3 children. 2 boys and a girl. Each of them had their mother's abilities, and said abilities being tied to their emotions. But their father and mother were patient with them, and each child showing amazing potential for the future. Next was Bruce Wayne, having left the life of Batman behind to raise Damian with Talia as his wife. Many still couldn't believe Bruce Wayne had married, much less married an extremely beautiful woman, and declared Damian their son soon after. A certain Catwoman didn't appreciate it that much, but eventually she moved on to other things, and found a rich man of her own to pamper her. As for Talia's father, Ra's al Ghul, he had paid a visit to the Wayne family only once, but rather than claim Damian for his intended purposes as his heir, he merely wished them all good fortune, and swore to leave the 3 of them alone. All in order to help with continuing on his legacy unopposed through the means of bloodline descendants without interference on his part. Ra's al Ghul saw this as a rare moment in his life, where he was not only a father in his 600 years of living, but now a grandfather too, and another route to keep his legacy alive. It was best not to make waves around the Wayne family when they were happy, and could continue on his legacy in their own way outside of his own methods. Besides, deep down, Ra's wanted his daughter to be happy, and she had always been truly happy when around Bruce Wayne. While Ra's al Ghul could be a cruel man, he would not deny his daughter the happiness she deserved, and with the only man worthy of bringing her that happiness. At the moment, Bruce and Talia were still happy married, being the old wrinkled couple that they were now. Good old reliable. Alfred Pennyworth had passed away from old age roughly 8 years following Batman's retirement, though the old butler clearly died a happy man, knowing the fact his master was also happy with his family. Meanwhile, Damian had found a woman of his own to marry after reaching adulthood. Ironically enough, the woman in question was none other than the daughter of one Selina Kyle, who named her child Caitlin, and had inherited much of her mother's beauty. The 2 of them had 3 children over the course of their marriage, and rumor has it a 4th one was on the way, meaning the Wayne family line would live on long after Bruce Wayne died of old age in the near future. As for Flash, she had settled down too, and actually married Giganta, with the 2 having a small crop of kids of their own. He had of course slowed down over the years, since him running so fast at this point in time was hard on an elderly body, and retired from all of the superhero business 10 years ago, when it became clear that too much running at super speed would hurt his body from the immense pressure it went through. Not to mention his heart and cardiovascular system wouldn't be able to take it when he got into his old age and risked a stroke or heart attack. His years of eating so much would eventually catch up to him if he wasn't careful. Still, the man was good-humored and loved to crack jokes when appropriate. As for Jon Stewart and Shiera, those 2 headstrong people eventually admitted their feelings openly, got married in their later years, and had one son named Rex Stewart to call their own. And boy was Rex a handful. Both during the birthing and once he was old enough to talk back to his parents. Though neither one knew which parent, Rex inherited their smart mouth attitude from when it came to talking back to them. Still, it was clear that Rex had inherited his father's cool, quick thinking, but his mother's mean temper, and it proved to be a powerful combination when Rex was being trained by his parents on how to fight. Jon taught Rex his marine-style form of fighting, while Shiera taught Rex about his Thanagarian heritage and their way of fighting, which resulted in a lot of things in the specialized training room of their home getting smashed up. A lot. Steel got together with Vixen, which was no surprise to Naruto since he had influenced that to a small degree, with the help of the fashion shows the man attended. The man was now currently head of the Machine Enhancement Division at Whirlpool Inc., and was also responsible for the user interface of the Golem construction robot. He had even found a way around the neural feedback problem the system initially had should the golem itself suffered extensive damage. As for Superman, Big Barda, and Wonder Woman, even after 20 years, the trio currently enjoyed life on Almerac, with the Queen Maxima. While Naruto couldn't be there himself, he had managed to keep his ear to the ground through Power Girl, who used her position as a council member of the Justice League to communicate with her cousin, and was able to get some interesting details about his love life. Apparently, the honeymoon itself lasted for well over a month, with the Man of Steel being tested stamina-wise by all three of his wives. To further make things more interesting, the Queen of Almerac had felt that her new king for a husband would need to have even more women within her empire to lay with in bed to further expand the Kryptonian bloodline. As such, she had acquired several other women, namely among the majority of the female servants, who were compatible in terms of giving him children to become his concubines, and to help him find sexual relief when he couldn't get it with his wives, should all three of them be pregnant at the same time. The queen was indeed a very generous woman to her husband. Of course, Kal-El, being the kind-hearted person that he is after accepting this gift from his wife, wanted these women to be more than just concubines, and wanted them to be placed in positions where they could help run things. He had wanted them to have the proper education to do it, of course, and didn't want them to think they were only good for a night in bed or temporary means of sating an impulse moment of lust he might feel at the sight of them. In any event, Maxima decreed any child sired by Kal-El, and said woman would be given a key position within her domain of their choosing. After all, it wouldn't be a good thing to alienate any of her husband's children, regardless if they were hers or not, and Kal-El had made it clear only those among his children who were qualified with the skill would hold key positions of power. Regardless if the children were of his bloodline, Kal-El did not want them to think they could get any position they wanted simply because he was the father, or the mother of said child was in a position of power herself. To keep them from getting lazy and complacent, he said. Diana and Big Barda agreed with him, and Maxima also felt he had a fair point. The last thing she wanted was to see her empire collapse due to incompetence and lazy offspring sired either from herself or any of the other women who had Kal-El's child. Last Naruto heard, Kal-El had sired well over 100 children. Over 100 children. Naruto had to admit that was impressive. No only that, but Naruto knew the Man of Steel took his position as King of Almerac very seriously, and was making sure the empire was strong during his shared rule with Maxima. In fact, many loved the man for his fair yet firm hand, which was helped along by the women in his life. He was even able to make a duplicate version of the Fortress of Solitude, using the duplicate crystals he took with him, before leaving Earth a second time to head for Almerac. A combination of Kryptonian and Almerac science being used in perfect harmony together to bring about a new age of greatness for those he ruled over. Naruto was happy for the Man of Steel, and hoped he continued to rule well on Almerac with his family. As for the rest of the Justice League, its ranks had thinned a bit given time had gone by, and certain heroes grew old. Some of them took on students, of course, or passed down the knowledge and training down to their offspring. But they still had a long way to go in their young lives before being considered worthy of being successors to the superheroes of legends. Still, they would learn, and they were young. In time, even Naruto's own children would join the fight against evil, and show the entire world, if not the universe, what the sons and daughter of the Jubi can do. And the best part was, he had the Justice League in his back pocket in terms of control, due to his various influences within the organization. For one, he had the King of Atlantis supporting him. Before the King of Atlantis, Arthur Curry stepped down as king to let his son rule. The man worked with Whirlpool Inc. to combat the pollution in the water. Together, they did more for the oceans in a span of 2 years prior to their partnership. Within less than 5 years, the ocean had been purged of well over 80% of the various toxic waste and filth the world had dumped into it. By the time Arthur stepped down as King of Atlantis to let his son rule, all of the oceans was clean once again, and looked like they did in the days of old when Atlantis was not just considered a mere myth of the ancient world. If there was one thing Naruto knew how to do best, it was make people happy, and happy people usually reward you for making them happy with their loyalty when called upon. As for the rest of the world, Naruto made sure Pamela's means of healing Mother Nature from what humanity had done to it was progressing nicely over the years. In fact, many of the toxic waste in the soil was practically non-existent now. Plants and wildlife grew strong and healthy without being riddled with diseases or other poisonous things that if eaten would poison the eater. Not only that, but Pamela was able to bring about proper vegetation to the more lifeless parts of the world, and soon perceptions of her went from vile eco-terrorist nutjob to that of a pioneer in saving the world. Many companies had tried to stop her in their own way. One way or another they tried legal, and in some cases illegal means of shutting her down. To the opposition, pollution meant profit. And profit was the bread and butter of a cushy lifestyle on their stupidly large boats. The opposition didn't like their stupidly large boats rocked. As such, Naruto retaliated in his own way, either by exposing dirty company secrets held by the opposition, or simply flat-out murdering them, while making it seem like an outright accident. At most, the results pertaining to the murdered idiots were considered to be the end result of foul play, but was tied to something else entirely unrelated to either Pamela herself or to Whirlpool Inc. By the time the smear campaign was brought to an end, all of Pamela's opposition had been crushed beneath her feet one way or another, and she came out of it smelling like roses. On another note, it turned out that there was a reason for Gotham City producing so many crazy people in the first place. After a long, carefully prepared investigation and research done on the issue, it was discovered that a little over 1/3 of the city's water supply was badly contaminated. All thanks to the old run-down factories that were owned by Daggett Industries and Roland Daggett. Further investigation into the matter proved this had been happening long since before the factories were abandoned, and never had proper upkeep or maintenance. Inspectors who were in charge of preventing this from happening were either bribed, blackmailed, and otherwise persuaded to look the other way during these inspections. Unfortunately for Ronald Daggett, the proof was undeniable, and the man's already large prison sentence got much bigger. He eventually died in prison during a prison riot created, ironically enough, by one of his former customers who bought one of his faulty products and wanted some much-desired payback for it. Fortunately, on a higher note, Naruto was able to fix the issue and provide a cure for the insane people who were in Arkham for one thing or another. It wasn't long following the dispersal of the cure there that the entire population of inmates at Arkham had been reduced to well over half. The various places that had the poisoned water in Gotham were also given the cure, thanks to Whirlpool Inc., sending out medical teams out to administer it free of charge. All in all, Naruto had gained so much love, loyalty, and support from the entire world for his actions. No one would even think to hurt him or go after his loved ones. "Do you think our children will join the Justice League? Or even the Titans?" asked Kara curiously, with Naruto letting out a noise of uncertainty. "Maybe. Even with my actions since entering the world, there is still a lot of threats out there that need to be addressed after all this time. What with some supervillains who don't want to reform, the demons, the monsters, rogue sorcerers, gods, and alien invaders wanting a piece of the planet for their own schemes. Honestly, with the way every bad guy wants to take this planet, you would think Earth was at the center of the universe or something," remarked Naruto while his wives laughed, since it was true. Why did so many evil people want Earth in the first place? "Well, I think they should join one of them in the future. It will be a good experience for them in meeting other people, and we can't shelter them from everything," said Karen. "Well, I think they should join one of them in the future. It will be a good experience for them in meeting other people, and we can't shelter them from everything," said Karen, as she saw all of the children, who were entering their teen years, having that look in their eyes to venture beyond what they knew, and what their parents told them. "We will talk about it in a few more years with them in the future, and see what they want to do with their lives. I don't want to take away their ability to seize their own destiny and set it up for them," replied Naruto while watching his children getting ready for some fun in the city. "They are going to be real powerhouses when fully grown," commented Pamela. Knowing just about all of her husband's children, were going to be special in their own way. That they will, my dear Pamela. I have no doubt that they will be a force to be reckoned with in the near future. And no matter what happens or what they do in life, I will always be proud of them, said Naruto with a grin on his face, and imaging all the adventures, if not the mischief his children would get into soon enough, when full-grown adults. Until then, he was going to enjoy some fun with his wives, his children, and a karaoke place where singing songs you are off-key on wasn't really considered embarrassing.